Java is a high-level, class-based, object-oriented programming language designed with as few implementation dependencies as possible to develop distributed applications running on the internet. To what exactly do the terms classes and objects mean, and what do they signify? In simple words, a class in Java is a user-defined blueprint or a prototype from which objects are created. It represents a set of properties or methods that are common amongst all objects of one particular type. Want to dig deeper and know more? If yes, then this session will enlighten you with all the essential information regarding classes and objects which lay the foundation stone of programming through Java. I will also be tapping into the specifics of what a class is programmatically, while connecting the same to some real scenarios. In addition, we will also delve into the creation of a class, encapsulation, along with their implementation through a class in Java. So stay tuned and join us to level up your understanding of the aforementioned topics related to Java programming.
If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, I want to request you to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications bell so that you don't miss out on any new updates or video releases from Great Learning. If you enjoy this video, show us some love and like this video. Knowledge increases by sharing. So make sure you share this video with your friends and colleagues. Make sure to comment on the video. Any queries or suggestions and I will respond to your comments.
Hey guys, welcome to the session which is about classes in Java. Before getting started, let me talk about the agenda of the session. So I'll be talking about what a class is, introduction to the class that is. Next, I'll be talking about the requirements of a class. Why is the requirement there for a class in any object-oriented programming language? Then there are different components of a class, that is your methods and properties. So we'll be talking about those. Then I'll talk about how to define a class. What is the syntax that is followed in Java programming for defining a class? Then I'll be discussing about what are the different memory allocation areas and how and when is the memory allocated for a class in Java programming. Different coding standards, different coding guidelines will also be discussed thereafter, followed by which I'll talk about the access modifiers. There are plenty of access modifiers in Java programming, but few of them are only applicable for classes, which will be discussed in the topic. Then I'll talk about encapsulation, which is one of the very important pillar of object-oriented programming. And encapsulation helps to implement the concept of a class. Then I'll talk about a programming example, that is a coding example, where I'll be defining a class and its components, and also how to access those components will be discussed in this topic. Lastly, I'll be talking about inner classes. So what is an inner class? What is its requirement? What is anonymous inner class? And all those will be discussed in the inner class topic. So let's get started. Now I'll talk about introduction to a class. So what is a class? How is it defined inside Java program? So class is a user-defined data type. For storing various primitive data, there are already defined primitive data types in Java programming. For example, to define a number, there is a int primitive data type. To define alphabets, there is char primitive data type. Similarly, to define decimal numbers, there is float primitive data type. So class here is used to define a user-defined data types. Let's try to understand this with the help of example. Whenever I say guava, apple are fruits, are a type of a fruit, or in other terms, I could say guava, apple, banana, grapes belongs to a class of fruit. So what is a class here? Fruit. And apple, banana, grapes, guava are all objects of that class fruit, right? Now, every class will have a certain property and a certain behavior. The example which we took right now, let's talk about that. So when I talk about a fixed behavior of a class, that is of a fruit, so what behavior it can have? That is, it grows from a seed to a fruit. So this behavior will be performed by or will be possessed by every object that belongs to that class. For example, apple belongs to a class of fruit So it will also have that behavior of growing from a seed to a fruit. Okay. Similarly, every class will have certain properties defined. Properties meaning, for example, of a fruit, there can be a property that the fruit is eatable. No, a person can eat that. So that's a property. So every object of that fruit will have that property. For example, apple, banana, guava, all are eatables. So all belong to a class of fruits, right? So now with this example, it's very clear that every class will have a behavior and a property, which will be possessed by every object that belongs to that class. Okay. So whenever I have to convert this example of fruits and its objects into programming, I will be using a concept of class to define this user-defined data type that is a fruit. So I can define classes in other terms also, like it is a process of binding the methods and data members together into a single unit. In Java, none of the implementation is possible without the help of classes. Any method definition or declaration, any variable definition or declaration is not possible outside a class. It has to be mandatorily inside a class. Let us talk about requirement of a class. What is the need of defining a class, or what is the usefulness of a class inside Java programming? Let's try to understand this with the help of an example. So when I say a car, that is Maruti 800, is of a type car. WagonR is of a type car. Or i10 belongs to the class of cars. So car is what here? A user-defined type. And all the examples which I gave for a car, that is Maruti 800, WagonR, i10, these all are objects of that class car. Another example I'll take. Banana, apple, grapes are all of type fruit. These all belongs to a class of fruit. So what is a fruit here? A user-defined type. And what are all these apple, banana, guava? These are objects of that user-defined type fruits. So similarly, there can be multiple user-defined types. If you look around you or in the entire world, there can be multiple millions and billions of these user-defined types, right? So is it possible for any programming language to provide an inbuilt user-defined type for every kind of an object or every type of a class which is possible in the world? No, it's not possible. For any programming language, it's not possible. So what can be done is a support for creating a user-defined type can be given. And Java provides the support of creating a user-defined type by giving the concept of classes. So that's the basic requirement of a class, to define the user-defined data types or convert these user-defined types into a data type when it comes to programming. Programmatically also, classes helps us in many ways. That is, it eases the enhancement. Let's try to understand this with the help of an example. Suppose I have created a class here, car. Okay. There are some properties of this class car defined, that is color of the cars. So initially two colors are defined, black and white. Now suppose there are multiple objects created for this class car. Objects as in Maruti 800, WagonR, i10, i20. Later on, after some point of time, the car company introduced a third color for all these cars. Apart from black and white, there's a third color introduced, suppose blue. Okay. So if there would not be a concept of class, then what you would need to do? You have to go and add to this object the third color, that is blue. So black, white, and then blue. Then go to the WagonR object and add the third color blue. Then go to i10, go to i20. Individually to every object, you have to add the third color, that is blue. But as we are lucky enough to have a concept of classes in Java, so we have defined a class car here. Okay. Now, if the company wants to introduce a third color, that is blue, in this class itself, you can add one more property here, black, white, and blue. Automatically, all these objects will be binded with these properties. That is the third property newly added, that is blue color. You need not go to every object individually and add this color there. That's what I said right now, that enhancement becomes easy. Just a change at one place, automatically all the objects which are binded to this class will inherit or will be utilizing these changed properties. So that's one of the use of classes when it comes to programming. Also, maintainability and modularity gets improved with the help of classes. Maintainability meaning, as I gave this example right now, that when you have to add a third color to all the cars available here, you just have to go and add a third property of color, that is blue, inside this class, and automatically these objects will get that color, that is blue. This is called maintainability as well. Later on, after 10 years, after 15 years of developing any project, if something needs to be added, this modular approach meaning all the concepts are defined inside one module, and a change to that module brings a change to the entire objects, brings a change to the entire project. And that's what classes does here. It improves the maintainability and modularity of the code, of the project, of the software. Let's talk about the elements of a class. That is, what a class is composed of, what it consists of. So broadly speaking, classes consist of methods and variables, that is, behaviors and attributes. So a class will have a blueprint of the object, what object properties are going to be, what is going to be the behavior of that object, will all be defined inside a class. So that's what class consists of: a method, which is also a behavior, and it consists of variables and attributes. So behavior is nothing but the action or the task that is going to be performed by the object. And variables and attributes is nothing but the data members that an object consists of. Let's try to understand this with the help of an example. Maruti 800, WagonR, i10, i20 are all of type car. So car is nothing but a class here. Maruti 800, i10, WagonR are nothing but objects here. Okay. Now, inside the class, we'll define a behavior, an action that will be performed by these objects, that is, these cars, i10, WagonR, Maruti 800, etc. What it can be, for example, let's have a behavior that is possessed by a car is we can drive a car. So drive is a behavior, is an action. Okay. Similarly, properties. So properties can be that the color of the car, the color that is black and color that is white becomes a property of those objects. Okay, so classes consist of these behaviors, the actions of the task, and these data members. Before defining any object, we design a class, because class is a blueprint for the objects. So once a class is designed, it is represented with the help of UML diagrams under UML design diagram concepts, which helps to define or design very clearly what a class consists of. Now, let's talk about how can we define a class in Java. That is, what is the syntax that is followed for defining a class. So following is the syntax followed. That is, we'll use a keyword class without changing the spelling. As I said, it is a keyword. So keyword are those words which is predefined in Java, which have a special meaning in Java programming. So class is a keyword. Without changing the spelling, you have to use CLASS. After that, a space, and then the name of the class. These angular brackets are not to be used. These are just for representation purpose. Then inside a curly bracket. So everything that this class will consist of should be enclosed inside these curly brackets. And what does a class consist of? All the methods and the variables. So all the method declarations and variable definitions should be given inside these curly brackets, which represents the complete class. Let's see this with the help of example. So I'll define a class car here and will define its property, that is the color, and define its behavior, that is we can drive a car. So how we can do it in Java programming? We'll use a keyword class CLASS without changing the spelling. Then there will be a space and then name of the class. For this example, I'm taking the name to be car. Then curly brackets will be open and at the end curly brackets will be closed. Here I'll have properties and behavior declarations, that is methods and variables declaration, because behavior is represented with the help of methods in programming and properties are represented with the help of variables in programming. So for a class car, suppose the property is color. So I'll define a string type color, okay, which is a property. Then I'll define a method, that is drive. Okay. Other concepts like the implementation for this method, the other codes and blocks, all these has to be included inside this class. But importantly, these two, that is methods and properties, has to be defined inside a class. Now let's try to understand how is memory allocation done for the classes in Java. So classes have logical existence. They don't have physical existence in Java programming. What is the meaning of this? Try to understand this with the help of an example. When we define a class, now we know how to define a class. So class keyword, the name of the class, for example, car over here, and then define the property, that is the color of the car over here, and we'll define the behavior, that is we can drive a car. So till now, when you have defined a class car, there won't be any memory space allocated to this class. So when will the memory space be allocated to the class? When we create object of that class. How to create an object? The name of the class and then the name of the object. Name of the class, that is car, space, name of the object. You can give any name here, suppose C1 equals to new keyword. So new is again a keyword in Java programming, so it has to be used as it is. And then the name of the class. This is also called as the constructor for a class. End it with semicolon. So now C1 is an object for class car. If I take a realistic example, car, and I'll say I10 is equals to new, the constructor for the car. I10 is nothing but an object here for a class car. Now, when this object is created, then there will be memory allocation done for this class. That is, how will the memory look like? I10 will be pointing to a memory space, okay, which will consist of all the properties. So here only one property is defined, right? That is, one variable is defined, string color. So there will be only one property, that is color. So as it is of type string, so whatever memory space is required for a string will be allocated. So now after declaring or defining an object, that is I10, the memory space is allocated for this I10. So classes have logical existence. They do not have a physical existence. That is, memory space is not allocated as soon as you define a class. But when objects are defined, the memory space is allocated to it. Now let's talk about some of the coding standards and guidelines that has to be followed for classes in Java. Talking about that, whenever we define a class, we have to also define the name of the class. So there is a particular guideline to be followed for the name of the class. That is, the first letter of the name for a Java class should be capital letter. So it follows a camel case, meaning if there are more than one word concatenated together for the name of a class, the first letter, the first alphabet of every word will be in capital letter. White spaces are not allowed in the name of the class. So what characters are allowed? That is letters, digits, dollar symbols, and underscore. These are the characters which are allowed for name of a class. Now, a few guidelines to be followed, which can be treated as a good programming practice, but they are not mandatory. They are not coding standards, but they are just guidelines, which if followed is a good programming practice. That is, in place of using the abbreviations, try using the full name for the name of the class. For example, if I use class and then class, as class is a keyword defined in Java, using it as a name of the class won't be a good programming practice. Although it is allowed, it can be used, but using the keywords as a name of the class is not considered to be a good programming practice. There are some other guidelines which needs to be kept in mind while dealing with classes in Java. So whenever we execute a Java code or a program, we always execute a .class file. When we compile the code, it gets converted to a .class file. And this .class file is later on executed. Suppose you have a file named abc.java. When you compile this, .class file is created, that is abc.class. If you have a different file name and a different class name that has main method, then it will throw an error because it will try to execute abc.class, which has been converted from .java file. But inside the class or inside the file, suppose you have named a class as XYZ, which is having a main method inside it. Then it will look for xyz.class. But your file name was abc.java, so it has been converted to abc.class, which is a mismatch over here. And hence it will throw a runtime error. So it's highly recommended to have the same class name and the file name. At least one class that has a main method, that class name and the name of the file should be similar. That is because the .class file is executed in Java programming. Now let's talk about the access modifiers that are applicable for classes. There are many access modifiers that are present in Java programming. Some are applicable to classes, some are applicable to objects, some are applicable to methods. So let's see what are all these and which of them are applicable for classes in Java. So the applicable modifiers for top level classes are public, final, default, abstract, and strict FP. Out of all these, public, final, abstract, and strict FP are the keywords which has to be used if you have to define a class to be public or final or abstract or strict FP. But default is not used as a keyword. When you don't define any access modifier for the class, by default it becomes of default type. So default is not a keyword to be used. For inner class, the applicable modifiers are private, protected, and static. Access modifiers that are used for outer classes are public, default, final, and abstract. So what are all these exactly? What do you mean by public access modifier? So whenever a class is declared as public, it means that class can be accessed from anywhere. Anywhere meaning the class can be accessed from other class in the same package. It can be accessed from its child class. It can be accessed from a class in the other package or the other module. That is, a class can be accessed from everywhere and a class is defined to be public. Similarly, default. Default is not a keyword to be used for access modifiers in Java. When we don't define any access modifier for a class, it becomes by default of type default. Whenever a class is defined to be of default access modifier, then that class can be accessed from any other class of the same package. It cannot be accessed from a class of different package. Next access modifier is final. So when a class is declared to be final, then that particular class cannot be inherited. That is, we cannot have a child class defined for the class which is defined to be final. And final is a keyword which has to be used before the class definition. Next access modifier that is used for classes is abstract. So when we define a class to be abstract, all its members, that is the methods, the variables defined inside that class, are defined to be either abstract or can be a non-abstract. But if a class is defined as an abstract, then its object cannot be created. Meaning, we cannot instantiate the class, as object is also defined to be an instance of a class. So that clearly states a meaning that object cannot be created for the class which is defined to be abstract. The methods which are defined inside an abstract class can be abstract, and if it is defined as abstract, then its implementation cannot be provided over there. The implementation for that has to be provided in a child class, which will extend that abstract class. So these are the access modifiers which are applicable for an outer class, or you can say generally a classes in Java. That is public, default, final, and abstract. Now let's see what are the access modifiers that can be used just for the inner classes. That is private. As private is a very restrictive access modifier, whenever a class is defined as private, the class cannot be accessed from anywhere. So if you define an outer class to be private, it cannot be accessed from anywhere, and that will not be of any use in programming. That's the reason private access modifier is not used for outer class, but it can be used for inner class. When an inner class is defined to be a private class, then that class can be only accessed within the outer class in which it is defined. Next access modifier is protected. So again, protected is also used for the inner class only. And whenever an inner class is defined to be protected, it can be accessed only within the outer class and within the child class of that outer class. Next access modifier is static. So generally a class is not declared or defined to be static. So we can say that a static access modifier is not to be used for classes, but for inner classes, static can be used. Next access modifier is strict FP. So whenever a class is defined to be strict FP, it means all the methods that are defined inside that class should follow a fixed standard, and that is IEEE 754 standard. Again, strict FP is also an applicable modifier only for the inner classes. Let's talk about encapsulation. How does encapsulation related to classes? So what is encapsulation? As the name itself defines its meaning, encapsulation, which has been derived from a word capsule. So encapsule, meaning putting everything inside a single capsule. So capsule is nothing but a medicine which has small granules with different mechanism of different medicine strengths binded together inside a single capsule. Similarly, this concept is used in programming as well. All the methods, the functions, the attributes, the properties are binded together in a single heading or in a single group. And that is nothing but classes. So yeah, one of the important pillar of object-oriented programming, that is encapsulation, is implemented in Java programming only by the help of classes. So that's how class is related to encapsulation. Along with classes, packages concept in Java is also an encapsulated component. With the help of this example, where the class is defined to be a bank, and it has a property that is the name of the bank, that is bank name, and a method that is print name, which prints the name of the bank, that is name of the bank is State Bank of India. So this method and the property, that's bank name, is encapsulated inside a single heading that is nothing but a class which has a name bank. So the concept of class together represents an encapsulated component. So that's how encapsulation is implemented with the help of classes in Java. Let's take an example and try to solve or code a question that utilizes the concept of classes in Java. So the problem statement or a question here is that a class has to be defined in Java using the syntax for defining a class. Then the class should have the name as student, and the properties of that student should be defined inside the class. And those properties are name, roll number, and marks for the 3 subjects of that student. Similarly, there should be 2 behaviors, that is 2 methods defined inside a class. That is your total marks of the student, and the next method that should be the grade calculation method. So the method that will return the grade of the student. Then there should also be a mechanism defined or inside a class that accesses the methods and properties of that class. That is how to define an object and how to access the properties and methods with the help of that object has to be also coded. So let's code this solution of this question. So I'm using a IDE IntelliJ. So as I said already that the name of the class and the file name of the class that has main method and the file name should be same. So as we have to create here a class that is having a name of student, so we'll have a class file, a .java file that will also have a name of student. So I will create a new class here that is student. Now in this, I have to create the properties and methods. So let's first create the properties. Properties are created or implemented with the help of variables in Java programming. So inside this class, so you can see here that class keyword is already used and the name of the class is already created by just defining a file. So class student is already created for us. Curly brackets is there, which will encompass everything that this class should consist of. So inside this class, now I'm going to define a property with the help of variables. And what property it should have? As our problem statement says, that the class should have a property of name of the student, roll number, and the marks of the 3 subject marks for that student. So let's define it here. That is string name. So name is going to have a type string, then a roll number. So roll number. Let's have a by default roll number for the given student to be 10. Then we'll have marks for the 3 subjects. So let me name it as marks 1, marks 2, marks 3. Let's have a default value given to all these. So marks 1 suppose is 85. Marks 2 is having a default value of 87. Marks 3 is having a default value of 96. So these are the properties defined with the help of variables concept in Java programming. Now I have to define the behavior with the help of methods. So how to define a method? The return type for the method, and then we'll give a name of the method. So I'm going to give a name here, get marks, because we need to have a method that calculates the marks of the student. Let it have a return type of int so that I can define here directly return. So this return keyword will return the final value which I'm going to write after this. That is marks 1 plus marks 2 plus marks 3. So it will add all the values of these 3 variables and return as an output. Now the next function which we should have, a next method which we should have here as per our problem statement is your get grades. So get grades will calculate the grade. So I'm not doing any calculation here. Directly let's have a print statement. So in Java, the print statement is system.out.println. And in this, I'm going to print that student with roll number, the particular roll number which we have already defined. Student with roll number 10 is secured a grade. So I'm going to display or the print directly over here. So 2 of the methods are also defined, which are the behavior for the class student, and three properties are also defined, that is name, roll number, and marks. Now, to access these properties, to call these methods and behaviors, what we need? We need an object, because we know that class has logical existence. It will not have a physical existence until and unless we define the object for it. So let's do that. As we also know that there should be a main method defined inside a class. And as the name of this file is student.java, so the main method should be defined inside the class student itself. It's a mandatory requirement for Java programming. So I'll be having here public static void main. That's a main method. String argument. And in this main method, I will define objects for the given class. So let's say there's a class. So to define an object, what's the syntax used? Student, that is the name of the class, space, the name of the object. Suppose the name of the student is John. So John becomes the object here. The new keyword is used for defining an object, and after that, the default constructor. So this is the object created, that is John, for a given class student. Now, to access or call these methods, we use a dot operator. How the dot operator is used? The name of the object dot the name of the function. So get marks is the name of the function. The another function is John dot get grades. So get grades method is already displaying the following line, that is student with roll number, thus secured A grade. But get marks method is just returning something. It's not displaying or printing anything. So we have to enclose this method call inside system.out.println. Why? Because we want to display as an output what is the total marks secured. Right? Here, no need to enclose it inside system.out.println, because already inside the function, it is displaying a particular sentence. So this is how we access the methods, the behaviors defined for a class. Now, how to access the data members, how to access these properties, that is name, roll number, marks, that is also done with the help of dot operator. So John dot, suppose I want to know what is the marks for the first subject, that is marks 1. Now, as this John dot marks 1 is not enclosed in a system.out.println code, which is a syntax for printing or displaying anything in Java. So system.out.println John.marks1 will now print the value of marks 1, which is by default given here to be 85. So it should display 85. Similarly, all other properties, if you want, you can access it from here. Marks 2, marks 3, roll number, name, everything can be accessed. Suppose you want to access the name. Let's give a default value for a name here, that is John. It has to be enclosed in a double quotes because it is of type string. And if you want to print here the name of the student, so you'll use system.out.println and then John dot name. This will print the name for the student, that is nothing but John. Let's execute this and see what's the output. So you can see here the output is the first line to be executed here inside the main method. So every Java program starts its execution from the main method. So first line of the main method is nothing but a creation of an object. So the object will be created. This will be done at the backend. The John will be an object which will be allocated memory at the backend. Next line is then system.out.println John.getMarks. So getMarks method will be called, that is over here, which will return the sum of the three marks, that is marks 1, marks 2, and marks 3, which is nothing but 85 plus 87 plus 96, that is equal to 268. And then this method dot get marks will print 268. Next line is John.getGrades. So it is going to call this method getGrades. GetGrades method is having a print statement which will display nothing but student with roll number, the particular roll number, secured A grade. So the same can be the output, that is student with roll number 10 secured A grade. Next line after that is John.marks1. What is the value of this property for the object John? That is nothing but 85. Marks1 has a value 85. So 85 should be the output over here. Similarly, John.name. So what is the value for this name? Value of the property name, John. So it should display John over here. So this is the output corresponding to the given code. So we have implemented the given problem statement, which was nothing but a class has to be defined with the name of student. There should be three properties, that is name, roll number, and marks. And there should be two methods of behavior of the class, that is get marks and get grades. Get marks should calculate the sum of the marks for the student, and get grades should display or print the grade that is acquired by the student. And the second part of the problem statement was how to access these properties and methods. So we can access the properties and methods by the object of the class. So we'll create an object first, and then with the help of this object and dot operator, so object name dot and then the method name, or object name dot and then the property name, will help us access the properties and behaviors, that is variables and methods that are defined inside the class student. Now I'll talk about inner classes. So what is an inner class? When we define a class inside another class, that is said to be an inner class. When do we use inner classes in Java programming? Whenever an object's existence is not possible without the existence of another object, there we use the concept of inner classes. Suppose there is a class A which has an inner class by the name class B. Class A contains class B. Then we use the concept of inner class. The relationship between the outer class and the inner class should be has a relationship, because the outer class contains or has the inner class. Let's see an example over here. Without bank, there can't be an account. Is it possible in real world that there exists a bank account without a bank? No, right? So there has to be a bank for an account to exist. So there is a has a relationship. Without bank, there can't be an account. Bank has an account. So here, bank will be the outer class and account will be the inner class. How is it defined or declared in Java? Class keyword and then the name of the outer class. Curly brackets is used to put the code that belongs to a class bank. And then inside, where there is an inner class, that is class account, it should be written inside the curly brackets of the outer class. It should be written inside the scope of the outer class. Then it is said that the outer class contains the inner class. So here class bank is defined. Then inside that, class account will be defined. Now, as we know that for every class, there is a .class file created in Java programming. So how does this concept works for inner classes? Let's try to understand this with the help of an example. So here class bank is an outer class. Then there is class account, which is an inner class. This is the inner class. And class bank is the outer class. .class file will be created for both of these classes when this file is compiled. So how many dot class files will be created? One will be bank dot class and the other one will be account dot class. No, for a normal and regular class, account dot class would have been created. But here, as it is an inner class which is linked to the outer class, so dot class file for this is created in a different way, and that is bank dollar account dot class. That is the outer class name dollar, inner class name dot class. So these two class files will be created. Now, to compile a Java file, we use the code or a command that is Java C, the name of the file. So here the name of the file is suppose bank.java. So it will compile well and it will generate two dot class files, bank.java, bank$account.java. Now to execute this, which dot class file should be used? Should I use Java space bank or should I use Java space bank$account? So you can use both. If I use Java space bank to execute this Java file, then it will execute properly and it will give you the output. That is, there's a main method inside the class that is outer class bank. And there's a print statement here that is account created. It prints account created. So output will be account created. But if I try to execute Java and dot class file this time as bank$account, if I write that and try to execute, it is going to throw me an error. Why? It should not throw error, right? Because dot class file is generated for this class as well. But it is going to throw you an error because inside this class, that is the inner class account, nothing is there. It's an empty implementation. Main method is defined inside the outer class, that is class bank. And to execute or run any Java file, main method is mandatory because execution of a Java file starts from the main method. And this main method is defined in class bank, not in the inner class account. That's the reason when we try to execute Java space bank$account, it gives us a runtime error. So can we define this main method inside the inner class? If I define this main method inside the inner class, that is class account, then it should not throw a runtime error, but it will throw the runtime error then also. Why? Because inside the inner class, we cannot have a static member. This is a rule or a coding standard that is followed by Java, that inside an inner class, we cannot have a static member. And main method has to always be a static member. So we cannot have a static void main inside the inner class. Now, let's talk about the other aspects of our inner class. How can we access the members of our inner class outside that class? What are the members of a class? The methods and the properties, the variables and the methods are the members of any class. Similarly, inner class will also have these members, that is your methods and properties. So these methods and properties, how to access it from outside this class? There will be two areas from where it has to be accessed. One is from the static area of main method and the other one is from the non-static area, that is from any other method of the outer class. So let us see both of these. So first, we'll talk about how to access the inner class from the static area of the outer class. So let's see it with the help of this example, where there's an outer class defined class bank, and then there is an inner class defined class account. Inner class has one member, which is a method that is defined over here. Method name is print account name, which is just having a print statement, which is printing bank account name is ABCD. Then the method ends here and the inner class ends over here. Then there is a main method which belongs to the outer class bank. In this main method, now I have to access this method which is defined inside the inner class, that is print account name. So how can we access that? So to access this non-static method, in the static area, we need to have an object of this class in which the method is defined. And how to create an object for an inner class, there is a change or difference in the syntax. To create the object of the outer class, that is bank, we'll use a same syntax which we use for creating an object, that is class name bank, object name equals to new operator, then the constructor of the class, that is bank. So this B object will be an object of class bank, which is outer class. Now I have to create a object of inner class. To do that, we have to use a dot operator which will link the outer class and the inner class. So bank dot account, outer class, that is bank, dot inner class, that is account, space name of the object. Any name can be used here. I have used here A as in this example. So A is an object for inner class equals to, before using the new operator, it has to be associated with a dot operator and prefixed with the object of the outer class, which is B. So B dot new, and then the constructor here to be used is of the outer class always. So this is the syntax to create an object for the inner class. Outer class, that is bank, dot inner class name, that is account, space name of the object for the inner class equals to object of the outer class dot new and the constructor of the outer class. So this will create an object for the inner class. To call the method which is defined inside the inner class, we will use this object, that is A. So A dot print account name. Print account name is a method that is defined inside inner class. And hence this will execute and give you the output as bank account name is ABCD, because this method is having one print statement, that is bank account name is ABCD. Now, let us try to understand how can we access the inner class from the instance area of the outer class. Let's try to understand this with the help of an example again. The same example I'm going to take, where the outer class is defined to be a bank, inner class is named as account. Inside the inner class account, we have a print statement inside a method, that is print account name is a method which prints bank account name is ABCD. Now, outside this class, so the inner class ends here. Outside this class, we have a method, that is calling method, its name. In this, I have created an account object, that is the inner class object. And using this object, I can call the method which is defined inside this inner class, that is print account name. So to call a method of an inner class from a non-static area, also called as instance area of the outer class, we just need to create an object of the inner class. And its syntax is similar to creating object for any other simple class in Java. That is class name, object name equals to new operator, the constructor for the class. And using that object, we can call the method that is defined inside the inner class. Now, how can we call this inside a main method? The main method which is defined inside the outer class, to call this method inside the main method, we need the object of the outer class. So we'll create an object of the outer class, that is bank, object name equals to new, constructor of the outer class. And using this object B, we can call the method. And this method is defined inside the outer class, so it can be directly called with this object. So this is how in two stages we will be accessing the method which is defined inside the inner class from the instance area or a non-static area of the outer class. Nesting of the inner class is also possible, meaning not just a class can be inner class of the outer class, but there can be one more inner class to already existing inner classes. And that is called as your nesting of the inner classes. The rules and regulations, the coding standards remains the same for all the inner classes. So for class C here in this example, the outer class is class B. For class B, the outer class is class A. So class B will follow all the rules and regulations of an inner class that is there for in the Java. Similarly, class C is the inner class for class B, and it will follow all the rules and regulation coding standards which is there for an inner class in Java programming. Now let me talk about anonymous inner class. Anonymous inner class is the inner class without any name. Such kind of inner classes are useful when we have to use that particular class, inner class, only once. When that particular inner class has not to be accessed anywhere else apart from once, then we use anonymous inner class concept. It's for one-time uses. And it's an inner class which is not having any name. So as it is used only once, we can use it without defining a name to that inner class. There are three types of anonymous inner classes that exist. So anonymous inner class that extends a class, anonymous inner class that implements an interface, anonymous inner class that is defined inside arguments. Let's talk about one of these. Anonymous inner class that extends a class. Let's try to understand this with the help of example where there is an outer class defined by the name of bank. So public class bank. Inside this class, there is a method print account name, which is just having one single print statement, which prints bank account name is ABCD. Then there is the end of the method. Then there is the end of the class. After that, there is another class defined, class account. Inside this class, we have a main method. Now, inside the main method, I want to make use of anonymous inner class. But this inner class should be used while extending a class. Meaning, I'm going to create here an anonymous inner class, that is an inner class without any name that will extend the class bank. So when if it extends a class bank, it means we can override the method that is defined inside this class. That method is print account name. Let's see how is it done. So inside the main method, I have created an object for the class bank. Bank, class name, that is. Next is your object name B1 equals to new. Constructor of the class, that is bank. Generally, we used to end it with a semicolon. But here we are not going to end it with semicolon. Because whatever we are going to define after this will be all part of this particular object and this particular class. As there is no name given to it, so this syntax bank B1 equals to new bank is nothing but here we created an inner class. But as it is not having any name, it's called as anonymous inner class. And its implementation is this part. That is, we have extended the class that is bank. So we can override the method print account name. So void print account name is overwritten here. And inside this, there is a different implementation given for it. That is bank account name is XYZ. And then we will close the inner class, which was started over here, will be closed over here. And then we'll use the semicolon. So this part is nothing but the definition for an inner class which is not having any name. Now to call this overridden method, we will be using just the object which we created just now. Bank B1. B1 is an object for the anonymous inner class. So B1 dot print account name will call this particular method, and to call the method print account name of class bank, we will have to create an object of the class bank, that is bank B2 equals to new bank, and this B2 is going to call the method print account name. And that's how we define an anonymous inner class that extends a class. That's all in this session. To summarize it, we discussed the following topics in today's session. That is, what is a class? How is a class defined in Java programming? What is the syntax used? And then, what are the different components of a class? Different elements that a class consists of was also discussed. Different access modifiers that are suitable for class at different levels was also discussed. Class is the best example to implement encapsulation, and how is what we saw in this session. The complete concept of inner classes and its types, that is, anonymous inner class, and various other coding standards and guidelines related to inner classes and regular classes were also discussed in this session. And we also learned how to write down a code for a given problem statement, which consists of creation of classes, creation of object, creation of methods and properties inside a class, and also how to access those methods and properties we saw with the help of a programming example.
If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, I want to request you to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications bell so that you don't miss out on any new updates or video releases from Great Learning. If you enjoy this video, show us some love and like this video. Knowledge increases by sharing. So make sure you share this video with your friends and colleagues. Make sure to comment on the video. Any queries or suggestions and I will respond to your comments.